In this chapter, we're going to be looking at soil and soil resources, and essentially we're studying dirt in this chapter. It may be something you really haven't thought about, but what actually makes up soil? Whenever you plant a garden, whenever you think about growing crops, digging in the dirt at all, what actually makes up that dirt? So essentially, we'll kind of look at that from the starting formation of soil and what are the components of soil, and then we'll look at soil properties, and then we'll also be looking at different types of soil, and then ways that soil can be amended, ways that soil can be conserved and resources conserved. So soil is really just the very thin compared to the other parts of the earth, the thin uppermost layer of the earth. And it's always formed by some sort of, we call it parent material, through weathering processes. And that's why we do the information in lab on chemical and physical weathering. So if you think about it, all of the rocks, all of the soil that we have are really just components of rocks and minerals that we started with. So minerals are just a particular element or inorganic compound, and a rock is when you have more than one mineral in a solid combination. Take you back to middle school days or maybe elementary school and review what are the various types of rock. Of course, sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic are the three types. Sedimentary is probably our primary type of rock we have in western Pennsylvania. It is made up of dead plant and animal remains, and they get transported downhill by either water, wind, and gravity. Those layers then build up, accumulate over time, pressure, and because of the weight, pressure because of water that might be covering them, all those create pressure, and over time that material solidifies. And so examples are sandstone, shale, limestone, but that's also the same process that forms coal, the lignite, bituminous coal, etc. Those are definitely types of rocks that we have in western Pennsylvania. Another type are igneous rocks, and these are formed from magma. So whenever magma is underneath the ground and it then cools and hardens, that would be a type of igneous rock. You can get different types depending on when that magma cools. If it cools while it's underground, a lot of times granite is formed. If it does go out of the Earth's crust and cools once it's exited the Earth's crust, then you often get other types of rock form like lava rock and pumice and a rock called basalt. And even though igneous are kind of like pretty common, probably the most common type is still a sedimentary type rock. The metamorphic take pre-existing rock and change them essentially. So metamorphic always started as either a sedimentary or an igneous type rock, and then due to high pressure, chemical activity, high temperature, several different factors it could be, the rock is transformed. So it changes it by changing its crystal structure. If you think about way back to chemistry days when you had to draw Lewis structures and draw the shapes of a molecule, you can have that same thing on a larger form when you think about the crystal structure of a mineral. And if you can put pressure and change that crystal structure, then that's going to change the actual appearance and the properties of a rock. Some of the examples are slate, which is formed from shale that's heated. You have marble that happens when limestone is exposed to heat and pressure. A couple other cool types of rocks are one called gneiss, another one called quartzite. And in the classroom we do have some rock samples, so if you get a chance, be sure and take a look at those and you can see the different types, see if you can classify them as sedimentary, igneous, or metamorphic. Again, something you probably remember from middle school, the rock cycle. You have the igneous rock that come from volcanic activity. You have sedimentary rock that form from layers of sediment, and at some point those might form from metamorphic. Those metamorphic rocks can get pushed down into the Earth's surface, they melt, they become magma again, and the whole process occurs. Here's where you're going to have weathering occur. Here's where you're going to have other processes that change the rock structure, but it's a cycle. So besides rock, what else is soil composed of? About 45% of it is actually minerals, so the basics, basically rocks that has been pulverized to a very, very small size. And the rest are very, very important as well. Organic matter, which would be things that were living, water, 25%, and air, 25%. You probably didn't think too much about soil being composed of water and air, but they are vital portions of the soil composition. So when we look at the soil composition, those minerals, again, those are all from weathered rock, and they're really what provide the nutrients for plants. That's the part that is where the minerals are coming from, essentially. It depends on where the rocks originated, what types of minerals you're going to get. And typically the older the soil is, the fewer nutrients they have. The reason for that being that they've just been used up by all the plant material that has been having a home on that soil for an extended time. The northern hemisphere often has more nutrient rich, and that's from what we would consider our recent glacier activity, recent being, several thousand years ago, but that's recent when we think in geological time. The organic matter, they call it litter, and that's when you walk through a forest and just see dead leaves and branches, that's called leaf litter, that type of material. It could be animal waste, dead plants, all those could be in varying stages of decay. And those also release the nutrients. So this provides the organic matter is a very important, vital source of the nutrients as well. Humus is a dark brown or black organic matter that's formed after decomposition. Very important for soil because the organic matter retains a lot of moisture and has lots of nutrients. Do not confuse these two words. You have humus and you have humus. They are the same, usually pronounced the same, but one is a fairly tasty treat that you have, and the other one is dirt. So humus is brown dirt humus is a type of organic matter that has been decayed. Very good for soil. The other important parts, as we said, for soil composition, water and air. You have to have pore spaces in your soil. The word for that is porosity. You need to have that. If your soil is too compacted, then the roots can't breathe, essentially, and the plants don't grow. The water and air together take up 50% of the total volume of the soil. You need that water, you need that air for the transportation of nutrients. The water gets in small pores, it goes through, and it helps leach the soil of the nutrients. Air is in larger pores. This will use CO2 and oxygen, and again, a vital part of the soil composition overall. As you can see, here would be like the soil particles. The dark blue would be the water particles, the lighter blue, the air-filled spaces, and each one is just a vital part of the overall soil composition. When we look at soil formation, we have to look at a few things. We have the parent material. We have to look at the climate when we think about how a soil is actually formed, and this is of course going to be slower if you have a colder climate. We have to look at the topography of the area because steep slopes would have a high rate of erosion. We have to look at the organisms. They help worms and gophers and those sort of things. They help distribute the organic matter. They help aerate the soil and put that air in it as well. And time, just the characteristics change with time, so that we can as we continue looking at soil formation, the other part we need to think about is that the rocks are going to break down through either biological, chemical, or physical weathering. Organisms help add CO2 to the soil. That actually, combined with the water in the soil, make carbonic acid. So that's a chemical reaction that takes place. The organisms are there as in the biological part to add the CO2 to the soil. And then the physical weathering, you have freeze-thaw cycles that help promote the change and break down the rocks. Organic matter just continues to accumulate, and when we think about the formation of soil, its thickness is going to vary. You typically have less on mountaintops and steep slopes due to erosion, and more in valleys and moderate slopes and in old growth forests. This is just a visual of some of the organisms that live in soil, very important to the overall soil quality. Microbes, insects, plant roots, all the types of burrowing animals, worms, all of those are very good for the soil overall. Probably a very important understanding of the soil are what are known as the soil horizons. This is something they ask for on almost every AP environmental test in some form or another. The very, very top layer is called the O horizon. Kind of think of that as meaning the organic horizon. So this is when rotting plants on the forest floor, that's all that leaf litter, that sort of material. The A horizon is when you have both rotting plants and finely decomposed rock together, and that's where most of the plant roots are going to be in that A horizon. The B horizon is where you have mostly decomposed rock, some rotting plants, still fairly close to the A horizon, but pretty much the roots end at this part. The C horizon, just slightly decomposed rock, so you're going to have rock, but it's going to be in bigger chunks. And then at the very bottom, you've got that rock that is considered the overall parent material for that particular soil. The O horizon, again, just what's it composed of. It's the most obvious when you walk around. You see it on the forest floor, you see it in some grasslands, etc. The A horizon is actual what would be considered the topsoil. Oftentimes many people add another layer in there. They call it the E horizon. It's known as the zone of leaching or alluviation. It's where some minerals get leached and kind of collect in one area. So it has iron and aluminum and some organic acids in that region. The B horizon is the subsoil, and the C is similar to the parent material. It's the one that's undergone the least amount of weathering.